Emperor Donald is entirely self-absorbed. He's the supremely strong and successful leader. He cannot possibly admit to error or failure, and so must always be infallibly right. He practices an economic ideology of the deal, which is simply and only about power and money. He's no concern for truth or for justice. Historical acts and historical causes are of no interest. Ordinary people are beneath his purview. He neither respects their human dignity nor their common life. Alliances and others' national sovereignty count for nothing. Everything is sucked into a transitional real estate game where the strong enrich themselves and the weak go to the wall. He's like a mafia boss who runs an extortion racket. Now, Trump did not come from nowhere. He's best explained first by his upbringing in a highly dysfunctional family. He was the second son of a real estate tycoon. His niece, Mary Trump, did warn the world, but in vain. And secondly, he's best explained by the darker side of America Incorporated. He is actually the ultimate upstart from a typically Western mindset, which at bottom cannot deal with the matter of values. And I'm going to try and deal with this in 3 moves, focusing on values. First, capitalism is constantly morphing, and for the last 40 or 50 years, a particular form has dominated, called neoliberalism. Its architect was Friedrich Hayek. He was a Cold War warrior who thought he'd found a basis for free market economics, which would put an end to the case for socialism of any kind. The market is taken to be a separate, autonomous realm, entirely neutral over values and purposes. It's an arena that individuals and businesses enter. They're free to enter it, each pursuing their own self-chosen goal, and bound only by its procedural rules, the rules of the game. Its outcomes are similarly value neutral. They simply are what they are. More widely, the society in which the market is embedded has no purpose over and above the choices of its individual citizens. Hayek therefore considered any talk of social or economic justice to be disreputable, both intellectually and morally, and he called them a destructive image. You ought to be ashamed of yourselves for even thinking of the idea of social and economic justice. So in sum, economics is an entirely separate area in the public sphere, and its only values are economic, and especially freedom, which pretty well means freedom from any constraint. All other values, whether moral, artistic, or religious, are private. They are matters purely of individual feeling or taste. My second move is to say, you may have noticed that Mark Carney has just been chosen as Canada's new Prime Minister. From 2013 to 2020, he was Governor of the Bank of England. And in 2021, he published a book called Values, Building a Better World for All. And here it is. There he insists that you cannot sensibly separate off economics from its social and its political context. Economists have come to assume that values are merely subjective preferences, and they're not open to reasoned argument or discussion. But that leads to market pricing being taken to represent intrinsic value, and if something isn't in the market, it's not valued. The result is that commerce expands deep into the personal and the civic realms. Quite simply, it's the price of everything that becomes the value of everything. The financial crisis, says Carney, the pandemic and the climate emergency all reflect twisted economics, amoral culture, and institutions lacking accountability and integrity. Carney sets out at length 7 key values: solidarity, fairness, responsibility, resilience, sustainability, dynamism, and humility. And he argues that any good society requires fairness between the generations and in the distribution of income and life chances. So in sum, you can't sensibly separate economics and claim that values are simply individual matters of choice. If you do, then the same mentality comes to engulf every other area of public life. We end up knowing the price of everything and the value of nothing. Moreover, I'd say the present capitalist system encourages the delusion that we are individuals entitled to the first feeling or thought that occurs to us, and passive consumers entitled to the satisfaction of our immediate wants. The incessant demand to feel good fixates us in triviality. In fact, values are not the same as feelings, though they are laden with emotion. They are fundamental to the humanity of any person and any society. So, making my third move, we humans are not like billiard balls. We're actually born to be active, capable of processing what happens to us and discerning the truth, reading the signs of the times, developing qualities like compassion and altruism, and learning how to be creative and enhance our relationships with others. In short, we are a social species, and the good life is essentially a life in common with others. Its home is in the groups of people doing things together, not in the brains of individuals. So we must recover the conviction that we are active citizens of a democratic parliamentary system where we all share in the pursuit of truth and the good life or the common good. Rowan Williams, who was Archbishop of Canterbury for 10 years, argues that all our knowing takes place in time. We live a shared common life in communities which change with the changing world across time. Maths and science do have their abstractions, but their lifeblood is in the creativity, the imagination, and the passion of scientists and mathematicians. And they always operate within a community of scientists and mathematicians who check on their work. So there's a constant mobile process of learning within time. The same is surely true in the arts, though I think it's a more individual process as people uphold and develop their own humanity. But so often it is a group activity, as with drama and music. So knowing involves a living process, which is like the enacting or the reenacting of a performance in endless variations. Finally, if this is true, then the very reality in which we live is surely a mobile dynamic pattern, so that the artist is offering a deeply personal response to the character of the world itself, which we can describe as generative. Visual artists create work which responds to the times we live in, the natural and the human world. It may be an angry protest at injustice, or it may be in wonder at its beauty and amazing complexity. Artists show great integrity by struggling to express a vision which they believe they can see. They peel away the conventional and they challenge us to deepen our own perceptions. So it's a vital process of human communication in a universe which, so far from being a machine, is actually an inspirational marvel and a mystery.